Greetings. I'm Chief Richard Currie, duly elected leader of the indigenous Maroon people of the Cockpit Country. As a duly elected representative of my people, I am also charged to be their protector and defender, to lead them fearlessly in the face of adversity, and to be the first in line of defense of their rights. When the Maroons are in need, they do not seek first to call 911 or 119 or any string of numbers. They call their chief. The members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the members of the Firearm Licenses Authority are not elected by my people. I am.
All right, that there was a compound chief, Richard Currie, and that Instagram post stems from a recent run-in of the compound Maroons with members of, as he mentioned, the JCF, on what is said to be Maroon land. And joining us now to discuss the legality and sovereignty of the Maroons are Attorney at Law Bert Samuels via Zoom and Foreign Affairs Minister of the Accompong Maroons, Alex Moore Minot, via phone. Good morning, gentlemen. Hope you're well this morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Sir Bert, and then I'm going to come to you, Sir Minot. Renowned attorney at law, Sir Samuels, we're seeking your counsel here because you have weighed in to say that based on how things have played out during the Spanish and English occupation of Jamaica, indigenous Jamaicans, the status that the Maroons are claiming, would have a case to claim sovereignty?
Yeah, I maintain that position. It is a treaty should be worth more than the paper it is written on, and therefore the British, when it was convenient and when they had to surrender to the heroic Maroons, entered into this agreement, and the agreement stands. It has not been waived, it has not been cancelled, and therefore it has the force of, I think, legal force, and therefore they are able to pursue clauses, particularly Clause 3 of the 1738 agreement, where it said that they would occupy the lands forever. Of course, the historians will come in and speak about the legitimacy of the British occupation, but if the British could give us an independence and granted us independence, then they can grant a treaty, and as much as our independence is legally binding, so is the treaty with the Maroons. In fact, it predates the 1962 amendment. 1962 grant of independence. So it has as much legal force as our constitution, in my view.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Because constitutional lawyer Dr. Lord Barnett is saying that while the Maroons have certain rights arising from that treaty, as you're saying, they're not a sovereign nation. Why do you think he would argue that?
Well, I can't disagree with that on the basis that I don't think they themselves are seeking to be a sovereign nation. It is just that the treaty gave them those lands. They are not they were not enslaved by the British. They were enslaved by the Spanish, and therefore they do not belong to the British. So it's a complex legal issue. There is no one answer to it, I would think.
Bert, before we go to Alex, and I'm reading here from the editorial in the Gleaner today, and part of it says the 1962 Independence Constitution, which established Jamaica as a unitary state, does not mention Maroons, and on the face of provides no special status for the Maroons. That means anything at all?
Yes, it means it shows a conflict and contradiction of colonialism. It shows that the British will use you and then they refuse you. So when it was convenient for them to surrender to the Maroons, they took a certain legal position. When they were no longer in need of the Maroons, they took another legal position, so that they are using us as puppets. And it is similar to the fact that we could enter Britain up to 20 years ago without a visa, we could enter Britain up to in the 40s to help her fight her wars. And then she just changed the script. And so she dangles the script and we follow. And I don't think that as a proud people of African descent that we should be bowing to the British interpretation of our rights. I think the Maroons have a right, and the British cannot unilaterally reverse the terms of a treaty.
Alex, let me bring you in here. Are you seeking? Sir Samuel said he's not sure you're seeking to be sovereign, but is that what you're seeking? Sovereignty. Alex?
Hello?
Hi.
I'm not hearing so well.
Okay, checking to see whether it is sovereignty that the Maroons are seeking. Are you seeking to be a sovereign state, quote unquote?
We are not seeking to be a sovereign state. I mean, the first thing that people need to recognize is that we have been governing ourselves long before the existence of the Jamaican state. We have our traditional government still, which is why everybody knows about Chief Richard Currie, because there was an election, and we have elections every 5 years, and the government recognizes those elections, you know. So my thing is that people need to look deeper into history. What did our people fight for? Our people weren't just a band of slaves that were fighting to not be on somebody's farm or plantation. No, our people are the descendants of the first people of the island. And when the Spanish came, they saw us. When the British came, they saw us. And when the British granted fully independent status in the Commonwealth to the government of Jamaica without making any provisions in the Queen's actual grant or charter, there's no provisions there speaking about sovereignty. She didn't relinquish sovereignty, so she's still sovereign. So we are the people who having Aboriginal title to our lands, right, and historicity that goes back arguably thousands of years. We see ourselves as the first state of Jamaica.
Alex, I want to jump in, Alex, because even in the editorial this morning, it suggested that they weren't even certain if they were police officers that came on the Maroon land. What happened? Why were they there, and what were they trying to do, if in fact they were police officers? How did we get to this?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, and a question that the police high command has still not answered. We are still not sure what they came to do, because these men, if they were police, they did not present proper identification. They did not present any kind of warrant or official document. So at this time, we're still uncertain. What we know that they were caught doing was cutting down the agricultural produce of indigenous Maroon people in a Maroon district. Bethsalem district is a voting district of the Maroon people, right? And as I've stated in other interviews prior to this, we have been forging quite a good relationship with the Ministry of Justice, right? We have a long-standing understanding with the police of the area that if they have any issues, they should call the council first, right? These are traditions, right? So we are still not entirely sure. But if you consider the fact that the indigenous Maroon people who are doing the agriculture, they live off of this agriculture. So when you go and you cut down their livelihood, you know, these are children who are going to suffer, right? These are old people now who are going to suffer because this is their livelihood, just as how people want to be free to get in their car and drive to their 9 to 5. This is what our people do. We plant our fields and we stay out of people's business.
Okay. So you are therefore saying that whatever happened was met with the right amount of force. You would say your chief did what was right in handling the issue?
Well, if you were to watch this video very carefully, the people who are our people were very upset, and they were actually seeking to, have possibly a physical confrontation with the men because they didn't understand why these men were stealing their crop or cutting or doing whatever they were doing because we still don't know.
Did you hear
Our
that part of the
chief-
story? I didn't hear that part of it. I didn't know that's what was going on. All right, so I want to ask you one more question. The Gleaner editorial today, I don't want to say they've likened him to, but let me read what it says. It says, if indeed the men with the rifles were police officers on duty, we applaud their restraint and retreat. If they were not law officers or law officers on duty, they were still sensible because the situation could have turned extremely nasty. But worse, it says, although unlike the 2010 events in Tivoli Gardens in support of Christopher Coke, no shots were fired in St. Elizabeth, Mr. Currie has thrown down a gauntlet to the Jamaican state. He does not respect its authority and its constitutional monopoly on legal violence. A compound, presumably as Mr. Coke, the mobster, attempted to make Tivoli Gardens is a state within the Jamaican state. That is untenable. Having staked out his extreme position, a future confrontation could end with unintended consequences. What are your thoughts on that? He says...
My biggest question to anybody who is in support of those words is, why is the Gleaner intent on painting our chief as a Don, as a criminal? Our community is a community of indigenous people, and the government of Jamaica signed to the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. Tivoli is not a storied or historical community. Our community is hundreds of years old. I don't understand what the parallel is. That everybody knows that Maroons vehemently protect their land. It is something that we have been doing from the 1400s, 1494.
Yep. All right. We have to go. I just want to get Bert Samuels back. Sir Bert, what happens now? And do you know for a fact that those were police officers, Sir Bert? And what happens now? Double-barrel question.
Yeah, that's it. It's desirable that the police numbers, the tag should be on their vest so that we know the number that they carry. I'm looking at the video and I'm not seeing any of the numbers. The police they have individual numbers, and that's very unfortunate because you want to be able to have transparency and openness. And going forward, I beg to disagree with the parallel between Tivoli and the Maroons. That's an unfortunate parallel. It shows that it's bereft of the knowledge, the history of Jamaica, to be saying this about indigenous people who have a history, to be tearing up the treaty in the face of a treaty that is signed. It's not, I don't agree with the Gleaner's parallel there. It's very mischievous in my view. And I think that the respect for our indigenous people is in part respect for ourselves. And there has been a tendency not to respect us. That is why Bogle's march was not respected and he was executed. Let us be careful, because Bogle has become a hero, though he was a criminal viewed by the British. So let us be careful and understand our own history. Going forward, we need to mediate this matter. We need to bring the Maroons around the table. They are saying they don't want absolute sovereignty. We should be glad that they're not seeking that, because I think under proper legal advice, they could pursue that. So they seem to want to cooperate. I don't agree with the Gleaner's approach in this matter. It could lead to a very nasty situation.
Thanks, my friend, and stay safe. And thanks. Alex, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. Look after yourself, all right?
Yeah, man.
Thank you, gentlemen. Tony Atlow, Bert Samuels, and Foreign Affairs Minister of the Accompang Maroons, Alex Moore Minot. What's next?
Up next, are adult children obligated to their parents? I hope so.